Yeah, go ahead and jump in. So, welcome to another episode of Second Scout. I'm your host, Potato RTS, and with me, as always, we got DrDabston, and tonight we are joined by a special guest. We got Jessie here. So, Jessie, thank you so much for taking the time out and hopping on with us. And how you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing well. Just relaxing on a Wednesday. Haven't played any games today yet, but that could change later tonight.
Awesome.
There
And
you go. So what rank are you up to now that you've been that the ranked elo have swapped? What are you up to plat over here?
Yeah. Do we consider this like an actual rank or?
Yeah. I mean, I will agree. It doesn't quite feel as good as the old days, but they said that people were supposed to have the elo that they were supposed to have. So I think you counted as being a good old platinum.
Okay. Well, then I'm flat. I'm barely flat one. Uh, I just magically jumped there from bronze 3. So I don't know if I can own it, but you know.
It happens.
yeah,
So one of I'm sure the big questions from the audience and some of the people watching this is kind of what was your background and what got you into jumping into kind of more of streaming AOE4 or streaming in general, and then AOE4 being the kind of specific target as well.
Yeah, I think, I've always played video games. I can't remember how young I was. So I think my brother and I first had a Nintendo 64, and that kind of started it all. And then, you as I think it's kind of like, as a girl, like a lot of, I don't want to say this because like there's a lot of girl gamers, but like when you are like a 90s baby, there's kind of like this split off where like the only games I played were the ones that like my brother had. And so one of those games was Age of Mythology. And we just kind of like goofed around and like made a bunch of Titans. And, like we're too young to play competitively, but there's like that nostalgia there. So then eventually, like when I decided to start streaming, I was like, oh, I'm gonna just play Nintendo games, what I grew up with and kind of like what I'm quote unquote like better at. But then I saw that Age 4 was coming out like just as I was starting to stream. So it kind of ended up being like this like perfect timing kind of thing because I was like, oh, I like have so much nostalgia for this game. This is like a PC specific game, and I'd rather stream like a PC game if I'm like on the PC.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just like ended up rolling. I was like playing, like Stardew and like Animal Crossing and Pokemon, and then I just started like almost getting addicted to H4, and then I was like, I'm only gonna stream this, and I really love the community, and here I am.
Yeah. So I know I was one of the earlier Jessieologists, as some people like to call it, or I would like to say that I am. I know I've been following you, subbing for some months, and I remember towards the beginning, it almost was all team games, community-based games. It was a really fun, interactive environment, and now it's obviously still is a lot of that, and there's a little bit more into like competitiveness and rank. So what do you think made you take the next step that was like, okay, I'm no longer just going to be playing this a little bit for fun. I actually want to be a little bit more competitive. And actually, I know obviously we'll get to this in a second, but casting it as well and kind of picking up more game knowledge.
I think it is like game knowledge. So wanting to be a little bit more competitive. I'm never like I'm not like, oh, I want to be a pro or that kind of thing, but I think like kind of climbing the ladder, or at least like focusing a little bit on the competitive nature of the game gives you an edge about like game knowledge, and it kind of grows your love for the game. And I've talked about this before, but this game is so new. It's like in its like very infantile stages. We're not even a year in for this game, and it's like backed by, it's a relic game, so they've been around for like 20 years. So it has time to grow, and so kind of like becoming more competitive, playing a little bit, I guess, like more serious, was kind of like my intention of just gaining more knowledge about this game that's like constantly changing. Because if you're not playing competitively, like you're not going to know what's going on next week. That's just like kind of how fast the meta's changing right now.
Yeah, you're definitely correct there. Even especially covering different games as well. If you are balancing a bunch of different games, it's hard to know, okay, an age update just came out, or oh, this player just came into age, or who is this guy that we're now watching and everyone's talking about that I was out for a week and I have no idea what's going on. So definitely understand that. Is there any specific players that you like to follow? Obviously, you were on EGC TV this past weekend casting and did a great job. For everyone who didn't get to see it, go check out the VOD on EGC TV. They also post a lot of the casted games onto YouTube as well. So big shout out to them. We're about to cover Wololo in a little bit, but as far as players, are there any, just how I said, any favorites that you like? Any styles that you kind of are like, oh, I want to kind of emulate that a little bit?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I can like choose a favorite on stream. I think now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, for example, like I'm looking at this screen that we have up right now. Like I know Mista is like one of the all-time favorites. He's just so fun to watch. Also, I've been watching a lot more Castful lately. Just their play styles have just brought something a little bit newer to the table recently. I know Castful's been playing this like age games for a while, and so has Mista in the past. But like I just feel like I like players who change it up, and even like watching some of like in the past, like just when players have fun. I think that's when the biggest change comes. So, I'm a big fan of Salami, and I know he has a lot of fun. I don't know if you guys watch the stream, but he has fun. And I think when players have fun, you get to see like changes in the meta and like good old like sportsmanship too.
Yeah.
So had you done much casting prior to this past weekend? Because I was kind of surprised to see you on the feed, but you held your own and did a pretty good job.
Thank you. I was low-key so nervous, I'll be honest. I was like, I want to see DrDabston up there. Because I could just cast for funsies on my stream. And usually it's like we've cast like Snoopa's All Bills games several times. And so I'm more like, who has the most sheep? Like, this is what I like. I like the goofy part of casting, but I think it was like a good challenge for me. It was like so much fun. I learned so much because it's like, when are you like actually honed in to 6-7 plus hours of pro gaming like that? Heavy. Like when you're on your own stream, you can kind of take freedom and be like, I need a break here or whatnot. But you're like following, this tourney. And so me being kind of like, I would say like I'm not as qualified in terms of like knowing, all the stats and all the analytical things, but I like to wing things. And I was willing to learn on the go. And spending that much time watching the pros, you learn a lot.
Yeah. So that was one thing I was going to mention was, from casting, you definitely end up learning like, oh, this timing difference, or oh, look at the scouting patterns, or look at what they're actually doing and how they're reacting to plays. And then what I found myself doing is doing that exact thing. Oh, they spotted an archery range. I need to immediately drop a stables. Or, oh, they spotted a barracks. I need to immediately drop a range, or whatever it may be. And you really kind of learn your own gameplay, and you can also kind of pick those things up while you're casting as well and kind of talking about it. So that is, I would say, is one of the biggest benefits to casting as well.
Yeah, so you're gonna be Conk 3 plus. I don't even know how to rate Conqueror anymore.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever get there. I would love to. I just kind of how you said with the competitiveness. Yes, I am a conqueror, and it's a little different, but it's still to me like the difference between Conqueror 1 and Conqueror 3, and the difference between top 500 and top 100, much less top 50, is light years in the long run. And I enjoy the game, and I'm definitely competitive about it, but I'm a little bit more realistic where I know I'm not going to be taking guys like Snoopa down or anything like that unless he decides to have a wham moment and have his power go out mid-match.
I feel that.
You just hit him with the English villager rush.
Yeah.
You got it.
Bill versus Bill. 100, 200 versus 200.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So I saw something in your Discord today that you're going to be partnering with, a certain streamer that has a bunch of fives in his name.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so go ahead and tell us what you got planned there.
I actually will be honest, I'm casting with Blade. That's what I know. This is kind of like our all hail mod sniper organization. He's like, you're casting with Blade tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. Kind of like, or so I'm actually not really sure what we have planned for tomorrow. I know it will be great regardless, because I'm starting stream an hour early for this. So I'm just looking forward to it because Blade's great. So it'll be a fun time.
Yeah, yeah, and so I don't know, like you said, I don't know what y'all have planned, but I do know the War Chief is going on tomorrow. It is that kind of same tournament that I was just casting today. They've split it up into a couple different brackets, so it's another highly competitive kind of tournament now, and more people have been joining in because there's been a lot of talk about ATR points, things like this, and this is a way for some of the not top players but still competitive players to gain ATR. And so the bracket tomorrow, I think, has like 8 to 10 of the top players. So I'm sure y'all might end up covering a few of those games. But there still, I'm sure, will be plenty of players on the ladder. I know, Puppy and Wham can always end up jumping on, and Blade can message whoever and get some high level games. But I think y'all are planning on casting more of the pro level games.
Yeah, I'm like looking right now to see what has been thrown in my messages. It is up for anything. So if you guys have any suggestions or want to guide it, I'm sure we'll cover some of War Chief tomorrow as well. But Blade has access to everyone, so we'll have a lot of fun planned.
Yeah. And now that you shamelessly plugged the casting tomorrow, I'm going to shamelessly plug your Only Farms tournament that doesn't have a ton of details out yet. It's a date to be decided, a little bit more of the info to be decided, but I'll let you kind of talk a little bit more about it other than that. Or you can just kind of say, hey, yeah, these are the basis of what we know so far.
So it's in the works. We're still trying to work out like some of the mod issues that are going on, especially with free for all games, game crashes and overcoming some of the um alliance type things that could happen and skew the whole game and maps and stuff like that. So essentially what I know and what we're planning on is this will be a free for all tournament ongoing over pretty much just the month of July for I think we're going to try to do 2 games or like 2 days for the weekend. It's still like up in there. Kind of depends on like the interest. So how many players we can get. It'll probably be like 7 players per game. And then we're going to try to like match up people based on interest, like on Elo and things like that as the weeks go by. So it'll have like, 1 game per weekend or 2 games per weekend. And then we'll have a semifinal and a final on the last weekend, which will hopefully we'll figure out how to divvy everything up. But we do have $1,000 prize pool, which is pretty great. And I'm working on some things, trying to get a couple more sponsors for some just like for funsies prizes. And we'll see where that goes. But it'll be fun to have a free for all tournament and anyone can join besides like the pros. So we're doing low elo. That's kind of where we're guiding it.
So I'm sure y'all end up having to talk about this because I am the low elo legends tournament has had to make a lot of changes due to the plat go or not plat, just the overall elo changing. Is there going to be like a max elo cutoff range, or like I said, I'm sure y'all will still talk about this, but any direction might be beneficial to any of those watching, any people who might be interested.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do some like vetting and like looking at game history and like looking at general elo, like your quick match 1v1 and like stuff like that, because it's just so hard these days. And especially now when I'm playing on plat 1 and then I'll get matched with like a diamond 2 player and I'm just like, okay, but then it doesn't matter because they start playing at the same level. So I'm not sure how we're gonna do this ranking system, and even I don't know how you guys have been feeling or how like your matchups have been going. Because for me, it seems okay, but then you run into a game where you're like way better or way worse. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I think what a lot of people have noticed with the big Age of Mythology player that everyone has been talking about who joined the ladder chemo is that there's a hidden ELO behind it. So there's the ranked rating, and then there's a hidden ELO, and it's matching you based off of the ELO. It's giving you points based off of the ELO, but your rating is the upfront thing that everyone sees. So it's kind of a hard thing to balance and a hard thing to see. I believe there's ways to see the hidden behind
Yeah,
the scenes ELO.
AOE4 has it. AOE4 World has, I
Mhm.
think, but they're not publishing it, from what I understand, because it's not. They're still tweaking some things maybe, and how to display that. Because that's how they picked the two ladder participants for this weekend. And now we'll talk about this later, but like Divine got excluded, which really surprised me because they were using that hidden rating
Mhm.
instead. Um,
Yep.
so there's a way to get it. It's just not out there for everybody, as far as I know. I might be wrong.
Gotta be sneaky or something. We'll try to figure, like, as I said, we're in like the baby stages. We just made like a poster today, so that's kind of where we're at. And trying to do some tests to see what we can do.
Very cool. Um, so just go ahead and plug your stream. Like, what's your schedule and what times do you stream? Because I'm usually not awake when you stream because I'm an old man and I go to bed early.
So I start 8:30, around. I'm gonna say around because as people know, I'm late.
Notoriously late.
I'm notoriously late. Around 8:30 Mountain Standard Time on Sundays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Although I did just like post a poll because I'm gonna try to start streaming like on a day during the day, and everyone wants Saturday, of course. But so sorry guys, there's some dogs outside, but that's kind of, those are when I stream. So I guess for you Eastern Coast people, that starts at 10:30 p.m. So it's pretty late. I don't know if I need to start earlier for you guys, but around the world it seems to work. We've got people from Europe, we've got people from Asia and Australia. So
From my streaming timing, I think you kind of have it at a good time. I've noticed like when I'm typically getting off is kind of when it's starting to pick back up, and I usually get off about an hour after you start streaming, and then you're kind of the main person there and the main go-to. There usually is maybe two or three that kind of pick up a couple hours later on, but you still have that like section blocked off almost, that there's not really a ton of other pros streaming or a ton of other big names streaming as well a lot of times.
yeah, I mean, I didn't mean to do that it would just like I ended up like I started making the schedule based on like when I had class. Now I don't have class anymore, and it just like kind of kept that and gives me time to like eat dinner and see my friends like
Yeah,
during like in IRL. So that's kind of like
IRL.
how
What's
what
that?
Yeah, what is that now?
yeah, so and I think you're right, and I know, like, when I've been streaming too long, it's like, oh, when Snoopa starts streaming while I'm still streaming, I'm like, "Okay, like, I need to go to bed." That's
That's if
that's just
I'm ever awake from Snoopa streams, I know that I've stayed up way too long too.
yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Oh.
So there was sort of a heated discussion in the EGC Discord. What was that yesterday about ATR and how that works?
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting. So I was Dabs, and I was kind of wondering what your thoughts were.
There's been kind of a lot of controversy. There's been a lot of there's been a lot of similar conversations and circular conversations going throughout the weeks. Um it's funny because, well, not necessarily funny is the right word. It's frustrating because there's always going to be someone who gets cut out. Whenever you're changing a ranking system, you're going to be switching someone lower and someone higher. So someone's going to be upset, and it's hard to kind of balance that. And I think the system they have in place is pretty good. They adapted for the monthlies not having the pros in them. They adapted for this less of a snowballing effect. Yes, there is a little bit of a snowball effect, but that's also kind of the way it should be if you think about it. that's the way the system works. If you're winning games, shouldn't you be placed better to continue to win games? So the annoyance, or it seems like, it's from some of the people who just kind of just missed out, or a lot of times the biggest thing that I said, I actually put some input in the situation. It seems like people just don't want to put in the work in the practice or the tournament plays. Like, there's smaller tournaments, there's other ways out there to get your ranking higher, and it doesn't seem like they want to do it. They just want to say, hey, it should be done this way instead so I get a better ranking. And that's the way I don't like about it.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the other point there was War Chief Club is kind of the only other thing going on, and that's not a tremendous amount of points even for winning.
So
But I mean, it does help.
So
But
you say that, and I immediately counteract and I say, look at Psyarch right now. It's not only, I don't say the points. It's, yes, he has actually been dominating the tournaments in the recent history, and he has gotten a lot more points. But he has clearly shown that his game has gotten better. He is significantly improved, and I wouldn't be too surprised to see him going a lot further in some of these Wololo tournaments. But then also, the points does help. It helps him get better matchups in the Wololo tournament. It helps him slowly build back up. Yeah, you think about, like, I think the top 8 or some of these might be like 100 points or whatever. So 20 points doesn't go a long way, but he wins back-to-back tournaments and he participates in 2 of the 3 of them, and then that's 40 points, and then the next week's another 40 points, and then he places well in the weekly, and then that's more points. And guess what? There's that snowball effect that if you never played in one of those tournaments, you're not only going to have no points, you're going to have no practice and no tournament play.
Mm.
So, yeah, there's not a lot of else out there, but now Adiko split the tournaments into 3 different days.
yeah,
So
that'll help. Yeah,
there's opportunities for people to be out there and actually play. And I think if you actually pull up those brackets, this weekly compared to last week's was significant more in the amount of players who came out, who showed out, and bigger names as well.
yeah. Yeah, I think I do like the system. I think the decay could be a little faster, maybe, because like if you look at Hera, he could have qualified for the monthly if he so chose to,
Well,
and he hasn't participated in anything in 4 months.
so you're
But then
not
again,
wrong.
he won an S tier tournament though, so like that should carry a lot of weight too. So like, how do
There
you
you go.
balance that?
So, and the balance is guess what? He already swapped the decay to decay faster.
Yeah.
It's just people are being impatient. they,
Hmm.
they they don't see it happen a week from when they complain about it, and then it's like, well, just wait till August, and then the decay will start to kick in more and more and more, and then all of a sudden, Hera won't be at the top. But yes, winning an S tier tournament deserves you to be able to. I mean, you look at some of these players who won Wololo in the past and they automatically qualify. Guess
Yeah.
what? I'm sure some of those players might not be in the best form, but kind of wrong. But even still, they couldn't be, and they don't have to be in the upper echelon of their game, and they still get the invite because they showed that they deserved it.
Yeah. I just thought that was an interesting conversation, so I just wanted to touch on it real quick. I was
Oh,
kind of
it's
I was
definitely a tough
lurking.
one. It's
Yeah, I
definitely a
was
tough
lurking.
one because it's like it's these people like Puppy Paul is a perfect example of someone who, yes, he is at the top now, or people would say that, but he wasn't there 6 months ago. He was grinding his way there, and people talked about, yeah, he was getting matched up against Lucifron, against Vortex, and people say that's unfair, and he didn't complain during that time, and he just said, all right, I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna go ahead and get these wins. Let me take Najee out.
That's right. So anyway, we had the Red Bull Weekly, the final weekly of June. So of course, Jesse, you were casting the first day. So what were kind of your favorite moments throughout that experience?
Oh gosh. It's gonna be hard for me because like I feel like all of the memories of the games have like blended
Yeah,
uh
they start to run together.
together. I mean, it was funny watching like it was fun watching like Wham and Puppy Paw obviously play against each other. But I think one of the funnier moments was like Core getting matched against Puppy Paw and just like obviously it didn't end up ending well for him, but he tried, and there was like a lot of humor in the games with him trying to tower rush and just like Puppy Paw immediately shutting him down each time and just like sacrificing his own self. to try and sabotage Puppy Paw. So I think that was like one of my more favorite moments, but definitely it's fun to watch Wham and Puppy Paw play against each other just because they're a little bit more intuitive when they play against each other. So they end up like guessing what the other one's gonna do, and you can see it on screen. And then it forces them to do other things like, pivot a lot more than maybe you would against like playing somebody that you hardly play or you've only played like, 2 times a month versus them playing against each other all the time. They kind of have this telepathy. It almost seems like they have like something going on when you watch them play. It looks cool. It's fun to watch.
Yeah. The thing I laugh about them playing is like you would think they have like the exact same play style playing against each other, but they don't. They definitely have their own specific play style. But as you mentioned, they adapt to each other's game and they kind of know what to expect. And it's always interesting seeing them play too.
That's right. And then so on Sunday, again, we got a pretty interesting top 8. So B took down Marine Lord, and did you happen to cast that one, Dabston?
I did not. I covered Puppy Paw versus Hut.
Okay. That's I wonder if KP or Drongo
The only
is on
person I
that.
saw that casted it was, I believe, a French streamer that got posted that I saw. So I actually don't know of anyone who has done a replay of it or anything. I watched one of the games though. I haven't watched both of them. I watched one of them and didn't like cast it or anything. Striker casted it. Someone in my chat said Striker casted it. He believes.
Cool.
So.
Okay. I'll have to try to find that. That's a series I kind of want to see what happened there. Yeah, and then we got BC Cutie got his revenge on Casva after knocking him out early last week.
It was still a close series though.
Yeah. Yep. Good to see Hut crack into the top 8. And then of course Mista, kind of the big story, and we got a Mista B semifinal, which made me so happy because they're 2 of my favorite players to watch, just pure entertainment value. And that especially that game 1 on 4 Lakes was just crazy. He was like, "Hey, I need stone. I'm gonna send 45 villagers over to Mista's side of the map."
Yeah. I think it was really cool watching 4 Lakes too in this tournament. You definitely saw some totally different play styles on it, just all across the scene. Mista was going Culture Wing Abbasid, booming off of 3 of the lakes with only fishing for his food. Other people were going, French, still getting knights and going with like, hey, we have the strong navy and we have the strong land. It was just kind of all over the place, and it was really interesting seeing new builds, new maps. It's a different change of pace for us.
Yeah, the new maps are really fun to watch. Also, it's like when you're casting it, you're kind of like learning how they work because you don't have as much like experience like playing on them or watching other people. So it's been fun having like 2 new ads. And then I haven't even seen like, certain civs like really play on it on a pro level yet.
Right. And you also see like different build styles completely change. Where I know I remember watching Hut versus Puppy Paw on 4 Lakes, and Hut just ended up getting so many. He realized, oh, these resources are vulnerable. I'm gonna and ended up getting it wasn't a quick tower rush, it was a delayed tower rush, but it was so effective that it fully surrounded Puppy's economy. He couldn't ever break out of it. He almost did a couple times, but wasn't able to, and Hut was able to take the victory that way. And it just shows, hey, on these different maps, people haven't practiced them. They haven't played Dry Arabia a million times, or they haven't played 4 Lakes a million times like Dry Arabia, so they don't know exactly what to do when they see, oh, I have a back gold, or oh, I have a front gold. I need to make sure I don't get towered, whatever it may be. So yeah, it's always fun to watch those.
Yeah, definitely. Do we have the map pool for this weekend? Are Frisian and 4 Lakes in the pool?
I'm not sure. I don't see it on the announcements page yet.
Let me check the wiki. Yeah, I don't see it on the Wikipedia. Yeah, it's not on there. I hope so, because I think they've had good games.
Yep. And the big news, obviously, for this upcoming weekend was at first Mista said on Twitch stream on EGC TV, almost guaranteed he's not going to be able to play. There's just too much stuff. He's not going to be able to do it. Well, little did we know, he sent a little message in some other streams and kind of followed back up saying, hey, I think it was he can delay his cotton watering until next Monday. His corn's what he needs to worry about, but he's watering through the nights and working through the nights. And so he is going to be able to officially confirm or deny if he is playing on, I think he said Thursday night or Thursday midday when he can officially decide. But he is kind of hopeful, and it does seem with the way that he has been sending messages and people have been responding that it seems like we might see a little Mista this weekend, which we weren't expecting at first.
Yeah, so he researched wheelbarrow, so things are looking up.
Exactly.
So yeah, speaking of this weekend, so we got the first monthly for Wololo. So 2 players are going to punch their ticket to the main event. The players that have already qualified are not eligible, so no BC, Marine Lord, Leenock, or Viper. And so we got the 16 players yesterday, maybe the day before. I have not seen a bracket yet. I don't think that's out. Um,
There's no bracket because they are waiting for confirmations of the 16. They have, like I
Yep.
said, once
Gotcha.
the confirmations come through, I think Friday is when bracket should come out, I believe.
Very cool. So we got the players up here. So the qualified through the ladder. It's kind of, I referenced this earlier. So UE Metal and Zerton get in. I thought for sure Divine was a shoe in, but they used the hidden ranked match Elo instead. And Lord Petito in the Discord posted kind of the list they used, and he's like shockingly far down, and I don't understand it at all because it's not like
I will
his
tell you
ranked
why.
points. Well, is okay. Well, I have a guess. Is he just intentionally dodging like good players?
Yeah. Like
Okay.
if you look at the players he's played against, it's people like me. I've played against mine multiple times.
Yeah.
And so it's you shouldn't be rated as high if you're only it's almost like we see Chemo right now. He's in the top 15, but what wins does he have? It's because behind the scenes his elo is much 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 lower. He's matching lower people, and so Divine doesn't have that higher up elo. He dodges any of the better players for the most part. He also only plays his French. It's not saying he's not a good player. He's definitely, I mean, we just saw him win the War Chief Club today, and he wasn't on French in the last finals at all. It's just on ladder, that is the way he has climbed so high on the ladder, and that is definitely an exploit that should be punished and shouldn't be utilized in the way that he does.
Yeah. I wonder, was that like explicitly stated in the rules that that's how they were gonna pick?
I know they updated it like a couple of weeks ago, and I know they mentioned specifically as well that if there is like it was something of to the sort if there is excessive dodging, exploiting in that sense, that's not just hey, like you have to play all the maps, you have to play all the people, you can't just dodge people because you don't want to play them. Kind of thing. And if there was going to be excessive reports of that, then they were going to take that into account. So I'm sure that was kind of part of the reason. But I believe that they said going forward, they're not going to be using ranked as much, or if at all, after this month. I'm not. Don't quote me on that though.
Interesting. So yeah, I wish we had brackets so we could discuss the matchups, but yeah, really excited, to see B and Casva and hopefully Mista and
You can somewhat assume the matchups in a sense because the
we know the seeds.
yeah, we know some of the seeds, so you can kind of say, okay, Puppy Paul's going to play one of these three, or B's going to play one of, and you can kind of slowly figure it out. But then if one person jumps out, and it kind of throws a wrench in the whole idea.
Yep. Yeah, Eric just kind of got in on the skin of his teeth on the ATR, and he didn't even play in the weeklies except this last week.
Right.
So I don't know how much of AOE4 he's been playing. I'm also interested to see Magic because he's been grinding. So
Exactly. Yeah, he was one that I covered a couple of his games, and it was definitely showing he has put in a lot of work and he has been playing a lot more.
yeah, very cool. So Very excited for this weekend. Do we know who's casting?
I know that Killer Pigeon is, I believe, both days. I do not know who his co-caster will end up being.
Yeah, I don't think I know either, or I haven't heard anything uh about it. So
Yeah.
Check KP's Discord real quick and see. He'll be casting both days on EGC. He doesn't say who he's with. So we don't know yet, but we know Killer Pigeon will be on both days.
Assuming Ludicor, but we'll see. Because the core is available to observe. So
True.
that's also true.
yeah. Sort of the other event going on is Durango's Outback Octagon. So this is the last week with everybody, and then they're gonna take the top 16 after tomorrow, and next week is the big shebang for the final. So that'll be really fun, especially the last day. So they're gonna get down to the final 8, and then they're gonna wipe the points completely clean, and then play 3 games. And I'm really interested in the strategy there because, like, if you win the first game, you're going to have a huge target on your back for the second and third games. So you almost want to lay low. So I'm really interested to see how that all works out.
Yeah, the Outback Octagon, it brings a lot of discussion, whether it be good or bad, about kind of some people's strategies that they've utilized. But again, with this one, it's hard to do that with the free for all tournament. If you're in that position where you're gonna die and you can kind of jump into someone else's breadbasket and stay alive a couple minutes longer, a couple positions up, then why wouldn't you do that? It's mutually beneficial. So that's where it's so hard to judge because, like we saw today, I don't know if y'all watched it, Avely was basically dead and Wham let Avely stay alive a little bit longer. Snoopa didn't finish Avely. Avely ended up landmark sniping Snoopa and then immediately dying, but was alive when State built the Wonder, so it gave extra points to State. And so there's all these different kind of little strategies you might not realize, you might not think about that these players are because they've been playing these Outback Octagons, they've been playing these free for alls, and they've been practicing a ton.
Yeah, the free for alls just bring a lot to the table. I mean, I play a lot of free for alls or a lot of at least like group games, like on huge maps, and there's just like I think like even just having a map that big like changes like all your strategies and like the amount of resources that are available to like obviously it's divvied up like per player like technically, but like if you like are like this section is mine, like you can get a lot more than everyone else and like the alliances and things like that. It's just like hard. I feel like having this like first free for all tournament is like pretty eye opening for like the future ones because it's like run into a lot of like issues that you might want to avoid, but then also a lot of new strategies that like you might want to keep in terms of like adding more points or like more incentives for players, etc.
Yeah, I don't mind the teaming just because the politics of it all is the most interesting part to me. So that just kind of throws fuel on that fire.
Yeah, I love the fact that they added the chat, and so we can see all the players
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
what they're saying, and you'll notice like, oh, someone just starts trading himself and says something immediately about someone else, or someone has like 200,000 resources, and it's like, hey, what's going on? Like, y'all fighting over there? And it's like, yeah, he's just boomed up, he's just chilling, waiting to drop that wonder, hoping that other people are fighting, wasting their resources.
So yeah, definitely, I've enjoyed that format a lot more than I thought I would. So hopefully, this isn't the last big time FFA tourney. Um, well, of course, we have Only Farms coming up too. So
Yeah, except we'll be low elo, so it'll be a little different. But I'm sure like with the next update coming out like pretty soon, it's gonna change it, like change the way the free for alls are going too. Like that, I think it's like kind of interesting. Like as these updates are rolling out, these tournaments are happening. So like the players have to change strats like pretty quickly or the meta changes like so fast because of like these updates or like one civ gets nerfed and then another one gets lifted and then you realize like oh wait now this is like way too strong or this needs to be nerfed now because this was nerfed and now this is the consequence so probably the next free-for-all tournament will look completely different.
I'm sure it will. So that's kind of all I have. So if either of you two have any topics of discussion you want to throw out, go ahead. But if not, we can go ahead and wrap it up.
Well, I'll just again shamelessly plug my little map making tournament because we have shown already that how kind of cool some of these new maps on in these tournaments can be. And so for any modders out there, any map creators, or if you know anybody who can create maps, go ahead, shout out my Discord. There's a little specific couple channels in there that will be map submissions. There'll be a prize pool, and then we'll have pros play a tournament on that after the Wololo qualifiers end up kind of finishing out later on. So it gives more than enough time to create the maps, make your edits, get any of those bugs fixed on out, and then you'll get to see your map showcased on some fun tournament play as well.
So fun. I love
Absolutely.
that.
And you're hosting Low Elo Legends this week.
I
Correct?
am.
Yeah.
So that is obviously the more the merrier. There's more than enough different ranges for brackets now. There's anywhere from bronze all the way up to Conqueror 1. So Low Elo Legends does include Conqueror 1. So it might not be considered low elo, but there is
We're
still
all low elo.
we are all low elo when we compare ourselves to Beastie and Marine Lord and some of them. So there's more than enough room, more participation the better. It's a really fun experience for anyone who hasn't jumped in a tournament before. It is definitely different. There's some additional nerves, there's some, and this weekend there's actually a different tourney structure. There's, I believe, I need to read in a little bit more into it, especially since I'm the host. But Chewbacca set it all up. But there's a different map structure, so you're not always going to be playing the same maps. It's basically like once you've played one, you move on to the next, and there's a set rotation of like 5. And I think Four Lakes is on there, Frisian Marshes is on there. So there's a lot of other kind of variants to your typical, hey, these are the 4 maps, ban and then go ahead and play. So it'll be a fun little time, and there's no bans for this week. So a lot of people, especially in low elos, I play, oh, I only play HRE or I only play French, and French gets banned, and then they don't know what to do. Well, now they get to see some people on their main civs.
Nice. That'll be so fun. I like don't think I could live if somebody banned French for me, because I would just be like, well, I'm screwed.
I've seen you play other civs than French.
Yeah, I can play other civs too. I like playing other civs. I'm just not as good.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where, especially in tournament play, when you're playing against other people, you don't know if they're on their good civ either. And a lot of times, especially while casting, you'll realize that, oh, this person's build order's off or this person's build order's off, but both are messed up. That's why it's low elo Legends tournament. That's why it's always exciting. There's always going to be something that you haven't really seen before.
Yeah, awesome. So I think that does it for us. So Jessie, thank you so much for hopping on. Everybody, go check out her Twitch stream. I will leave the link in the description. So give her a follow. And yeah, we will see you all next week. Thanks for stopping by.
Catch you all next time.